Have you ever felt like life keeps taking more and more out of you, without a moment to breathe? Or when Sunday rolls around and that anxiety of having to go to work tomorrow becomes so unbearable, you call out sick? Or your workload has become too much for you to handle, so you start to care less about doing your job right and to the best of your ability? If so, then you might be suffering from burnout. If you're unfamiliar with the term, burnout is a state of physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion typically experienced when someone is under constant pressure and repetitive stress. The term was first used in the 1970s by psychologist Herbert Freudenberger and was developed further by social psychologist Christina Maslach, who created the Maslach Burnout Inventory, or MBI for short. This checklist measures the extent and pattern of burnout and the likely causes attributing to it. It does so by utilizing a set of questions that measures 3 dimensions of a person: depersonalization, emotional exhaustion, and personal accomplishment. Maslach determined that it was important to have a way to identify burnout over stress, as they were commonly misinterpreted to be one and the same, but they're not. Stress is a short-term feeling we experience, where although we may be in a situation or activity that causes it, we still have the capacity to engage and push through. Burnout, although it can be caused by stress, is a long-term feeling, where we feel so detached and demotivated by the activity that's causing it that we lose the will to even engage in it. So, the question then becomes, what causes burnout? The main reason? A lack of resources and support to effectively endure prolonged and excessive stress. But that's not all. When we experience burnout in our jobs, it's most likely because of the following: a lack of recognition or appreciation of our hard work, a lack of fulfillment or belonging within our workplace, feeling like there's no growth or progress being made, or no clear division between work and personal life, or the absence entirely of healthy work-life balance, and so much more. According to a survey conducted in 2023, 65% of employees experienced occupational burnout throughout the year, and that number has only risen, with a whopping 82% of workers at risk of experiencing burnout in 2025. And this is especially prevalent with younger generations like millennials and Gen Z. The average age of an American to experience burnout is 42 years old, but millennial and Gen Z workers reported experiencing the peak of stress at the ripe age of 25, with 70% of millennial and Gen Z workers reporting that they have experienced multiple symptoms of burnout throughout their careers in 2024. The main benefactors to these younger generations experiencing burnout are most likely because of the following: the sudden devaluation of college degrees in the workplace, financial insecurity due to societal economic shifts and massive sums of college debt, or social media creating this perfect life that is, quite frankly, unattainable. This leaves the question: what causes these things to happen that's causing such a large amount of people to experience burnout? The answer? Societal norms. As someone who's a part of Gen Z, I am all too familiar with my reasons my generation experiences burnout. It can be difficult to feel like you're making a difference in your occupation when you have outside circumstances contributing to your overall mental health. Our society doesn't make it any easier, as I believe we're currently living in a grindset mindset age, where you always have to have some form of an occupation or hustle, some way of growing your wealth and your knowledge and your experience. And I'm sure you've seen the videos from YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. So it can be difficult to try and live for yourself with your own boundaries when you have so many extenuating circumstances breathing down your neck. It had me thinking, was it always like this? Well, to answer that, I asked someone from Generation X some questions regarding burnout to see if he ever encountered it. And he did, obviously, but he had a very difficult time processing it. He would bring work home and neglect his duties as both a parent and a partner. Occupational burnout took more from him than he even realized. The biggest thing that I took away from our conversation was how he remedied it. Because of his era that he grew up in, with that mindset of you're a man, so you have to tough it out and keep on keeping on, he never took the time for himself to try and break out of that cycle of burnout. Instead, he continued to work through it without trying to solve it, which only contributed more to his burnout. Societal norms at the time frowned upon using sick days for anything other than actually being sick, and forget using your vacation time because it was barely used. And I mean, let's be honest, that was also frowned upon too. If you weren't in work, what were you doing? And at the time, caring for your mental health as a concept was just starting to come into fruition. And to be honest, not many people were emotionally and mentally intelligent, or frankly, didn't even care. So I could understand why he felt obligated to continue to push through his burnout in an attempt to look like a great worker and a manly man. But these norms, even though they were all the way from when he was my age, they're still prevalent today. And in fact, I believe even more so. Although caring for your mental health is discussed, our corporate culture still push this grind set mindset, mixed with social media and outside circumstances and an economy that seems to be against us with every turn. Burnout seems to be more prevalent than ever before, for all generations, young and old. Which had me thinking about my personal experience with burnout and about methods on how we can stop it. So, what can we do to prevent occupational burnout? For starters, recognizing when you are at maximum capacity. As workers, we have the tendency to be yes men or yes women. When we feel obligated to say yes to something, either to gain favor with the person asking, look like a great addition to the team, or out of fear of losing our jobs. And while those reasons may be valid, it's imperative to know when it's time to stand your ground and say no. And when you create that boundary, do not allow your peers and people of higher pay grades to try and step over them or manipulate you into doing something. Because if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. I know for me personally, I'm definitely a yes man when I am at work. I will always say I'm willing to help, and I will always say that I will do something if somebody else doesn't want to. I feel like I'm always taking on more work than I have to, and I'm taking on the brunt of responsibility. When I had first started working at this job that I'm at currently, I was fine with that. But as time progressed and I became more emotionally intelligent, I learned that it was severely degrading my mental health. And the burnout that I was feeling was so intense that I was hating everything, not just my job. So I had to create a boundary, which I still haven't done, and I'm working on it, but I guess I should watch this video. Anyways, in tandem with that, it's also important to recognize when changes in your company don't align with your values and wants. A job could be all you've wanted when you first started, but over time, things change naturally, and a company you once loved can become something else entirely. If you start waking up every morning dreading having to go in, so much so that you start to call out sick, or if you're so burned out from the week that you can barely function and you lose enjoyment of doing fun things over the weekend, you might want to consider looking for other opportunities. It's okay to recognize that you're not getting what you want and deserve from a place, and to look elsewhere for it. A job has to give you a reason to stay, just as much as you have to give the job a reason for you to be there. It's a two-way street. Following that, if you're experiencing a severe lack of recognition and appreciation for what you bring to the table, it might be worth having dialogue with your team or superior to see where you are as a team member and as an employee. Make sure that when you do have this conversation, that you bring proof of your progress and that you stand your ground when the conversation starts to ebb and flow against you. But it's also important to recognize your shortcomings and weaknesses and to accept real constructive criticism when it's given to you. Either way, you want the dialogue to be meaningful and impactful, with you walking away from it feeling like you have direction to either improve yourself or take the next steps in your career. Whether that be exploring new opportunities elsewhere, either in the company you work for or somewhere else entirely, or being your own cheerleader and looking for the positives of the workday, it's important to recognize either on your own or through the lens of someone else that you're doing a great job. So, what should be the takeaway? Stop locking in. Stop logging in. Just stop. Plain and simple. It's okay to want to do a great job and make a name for yourself in your occupation or side gig. Just remember to take time for yourself and to not make those things your life. When you are forever locked in, you start to live to work, when it should be the other way around. Work to live. So do yourself a favor and stop locking in. Occupational burnout is a phenomenon experienced when one lacks the resources and support to effectively endure prolonged and constant stress in their jobs. without a way to remedy it by taking time for ourselves, creating boundaries, searching for new opportunities, or any other form of self-care, occupational burnout can leave us feeling trapped in our jobs without a way to live our lives to the fullest. That's why it's important to focus on self-care and self-reliance when encountering occupational burnout, and to ultimately stop locking in to prevent it for the future. Anyways, those are my thoughts. Thank you for joining me in another chapter of my series, Let's Talk. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Either way, I hope I added something to your thought palace. And if I didn't, there's always a next video. Take care, stay safe, and don't forget to smile. See ya.